Hey everyone, Ben here. Welcome back to the Stellar Work podcast. Today I'm joined by Darja Smite, a professor of software engineering at the Blekinge, I hope I pronounced that correct, Institute of Technology in Sweden. Darja is a leading expert on distributed development and has been researching virtual teams since well before the pandemic. In this episode, we dive into the massive shifts we've seen in the workspace over the last 5 years. We discuss her data-back insights on why fully remote onboarding can lead to higher turnover, the cultural nuances of hybrid work, and the magic of in-person connection that we often miss when working from home. Darja also explains why there is no silver bullet for office policies and how companies can discover their own DNA to build a successful hybrid culture. It's an interesting episode that you don't want to miss if you ever worked or currently are working in a hybrid or remote setting. All right, enough of the intro. It's way too long anyway. Let's start. Hello, Darja. Welcome to the Stellar Work podcast.
Hello, Ben. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a couple of weeks, months since we met in
Yes,
Slovenia.
about a month.
Yeah. And I'm really happy to see you again.
Thank you, likewise.
You gave an awesome talk, like capturing the past 5 years of remote work and how that affected teams and how things changed. So I'm really excited to do this episode with you.
Great. The pleasure is all mine. The more we can spread our research results, the better.
Where does this podcast find you? You're in Sweden at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Sweden, and I'm not working from home today. I'm working at the Blekinge Institute of Technology's podcast room right now.
All right at university. Pretty cool. Tell us a little bit about your work. You've been researching and meta-researching teams on how in the past 5 years, all of that remote work and hybrid work has affected them and what has changed along those years. And maybe you could share some of your insights.
Right. So today we will talk about the data we have collected, I guess. Actually, the story is a little bit longer. It's not just 5 last years. I've been an expert on distributed development and outsourcing. So I've studied virtual teams a long time before the pandemic hit us. And during the pandemic, my study subjects, you can say, scaled to the whole population of knowledge workers in just one day.
Yeah, that must have been crazy, right?
It was crazy. I had mixed feelings about it, as you can imagine.
I do. What happened then?
Overnight, I became an expert on remote work. And when the offices opened, then I became an expert on hybrid working. So ever since during the pandemic and ever since the reopening, we are supporting quite many companies trying to understand what policies suit better their work culture and how to preserve performance and how to preserve retention of the employees also in the companies. And the companies I work with are quite exciting. For example, Spotify, Ericsson, Telenor, Storebrand, Sony.
So those are mainly Scandinavian, if not Swedish companies, right?
Well, Sony is a Japanese company, but they all have sites in Sweden. So we work with primarily Swedish companies, Swedish sites, but also with their sites around the world. So during the pandemic, for example, I interviewed Spotify employees in London and in New York. I talked to Ericsson employees in India and in Germany. So it's a mixture.
Were you able to find like cultural differences, or is it like across the board pretty much a very do you see very common patterns across the board, or do you see like specific regions or specific cultures differences in the way they approach hybrid work or remote work?
There are always cultural differences, of course. They can be subtle, they can be huge. We don't systematically study them, but as some anecdotes from my interviews, I can mention a few. For example, in US during the pandemic, people saw in their video cameras a lot of these backgrounds from home and from kids, from pets. And in some cultures, of course, for example, in India, people know everything about you, everything because they connect through knowing your background and private information. In other cultures, like in Sweden and in US, people don't share private information very much with their colleagues. So these were windows into world they have never seen, and they could maybe have more empathy towards each other and connect on a different level.
Yeah. I mean, just look at our backgrounds. I'm from Germany. You're from Sweden. We both have very anonymous backgrounds. Like
Yes.
you can't tell anything about where we are.
Exactly. And another interesting difference is the traffic situations. So when we talk about coming to the office for a couple of hours, meeting in Karlskrona, where I'm from, right now I live in a city or a town of 60,000 people. Most people live within 15 minutes of walking to the office or 20 minutes of driving to the office. And when you have the same work policies in India, where commute can take 1.5 hours one way, it's a completely different story.
Yeah. You suddenly, when you work from home in that scenario, you just right away get 3 hours of your life back.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Not only time-wise, but sometimes it's dangerous to take transportation, public transportation, or taxis.
Maybe before we get too deep into this, can you walk us through what happened in the last 5 years? Are there been some evolutionary steps that you were able to recognize? Some shifts and fluctuations, how companies approach that situation? Can you just give us a brief walkthrough of what happened in that field?
Sure. I'm not quite certain where to start. I think where I would lean towards is the media headlines, because that's what everybody is seeing and reading. And I think the first thing that we saw was that a lot of companies send their employees to work from home. Some of them were prepared for it. For example, companies that have a lot of sites around the world, they have been distributed in and supported with the infrastructure to connect digitally all the way before the pandemic. And a lot of other companies had to invest into infrastructure, into licenses and tools and equipment, and also allow employees to take that equipment with them home. And once we have done that big step, a lot of people who have not worked from home before realize that it's actually working. And some companies realize they can save a lot of money on the offices. And since we didn't know, we were waiting for the reopening and the pandemic ending soon. And after some maybe 3-4 months into the pandemic, everyone realized, well, we're not returning anytime soon. So plans started to shift and change.
I saw that as well here in Germany, but then at a certain level or at a certain time, companies recognized that they couldn't get out of their rent contract for their office building like within a year or so, because the rent is for, let's say, 10 or 15 years set. So then they had this, oh, we're underutilizing our office and we want everyone to come back to have a good utilization rate and to really make that investment worth, right?
Correct.
Have you seen something similar?
Absolutely. So one of the industries that has undergone a major transformation is the rental office buildings. The contract duration now is not the same as before the pandemic. So now the new contracts are maybe 3-5 years long and not 10 and 15 years long. And definitely I have talked to people asking what was the reason for making the mandates for employees to return to the office work after the pandemic. And in a few companies, the only reason is because we have the office, we need to justify this investment. And that's not a very good value proposition when it comes to changing the from a fully remote to maybe fully on-site or 3-4 days on-site working.
Yeah. And another reason that at least I saw within the tech industry was to sort of force layoffs or to let go of people. Like you give them the opportunity to work from home for 2 years. Everyone is setting up their office, putting investment in there, and maybe moving out of the city to have a little bit less spending on rent because they realize they can work from home. And now the company is asking them to come to the office. We saw that in the US, which company was it? I think it was Salesforce, who hired remote people and then asked them to come to the office or leave the job instead. Do you
Yes,
think that
and
was
we
one of the
also,
strategies that you saw?
I'm not, I haven't spoken to any companies with that specific strategy, or maybe they wouldn't acknowledge that. But what we see is that a lot of young people who have taken up the jobs during the pandemic or shortly after with the more flexible policies, they have signed up for a different job. So when a company decides to make 3 days office in the office policies, they say no, thank you. We have not signed up for that, and we have not been employed by the company with office presence.
So where do you think is all of this heading? Like, is there a hybrid thing to settle? Are there specific industries that will be fully remote into the future? Like, do you see a trajectory where this goes?
There is no one trajectory. That is something that I have seen, and I fully believe that there is a space on the market, job market, for companies that are fully remote, fully on site, and everything in between.
Mm.
I don't really like stigmatizing companies that want their employees inside the offices because, for example, I've worked with small and medium companies that say, we're like a family. We are performing well because we are all close friends, and we have this ad hoc, natural, organic coordination when we are sharing the same office. And that's our key to success. So why would we blame these companies for being maybe Tayloristic, control oriented? This is
Mm.
not what the office presence is about for them.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Do you see pattern in like company sizes or different industries?
A little bit. So the bigger the company, the more days in the office, or they would like to have office presence. And smaller companies, they are a little bit more flexible and maybe fewer days in the office. Because it's easier to agree on which days you are in the office when you're a small company. When it's a big company, you can effectively avoid each other, simply coming on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to tell you the story that I heard last week from one of my clients, where one of their employees said, like, okay, like my office days are Mondays, Fridays, because then I can work like really focused and get stuff done. And everyone else is coming in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in order to extend the weekend.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a very typical pattern in Scandinavian companies. But actually, one of the surprising findings for us was a Portuguese company or a Norwegian company with a site in Portugal, where everybody came on Fridays. Everyone worked 4 days at home, and then on Fridays, everyone was in because they wanted to coordinate, to see what has happened during the week, who has done what, and maybe go for a drink after
Yeah.
work.
I mean, if I was wondering, like, if you have fixed policies within your company to maybe come in on Thursday, Friday, and have home office Monday to Wednesday, you could rent the same place for two different companies, right? One company with their
Yes.
policies at the start of the week, and another company with the policies at the end of the week, and have like a shared service center taking care of the office and all the stuff that is going around on the office.
I think that would be a little bit, maybe from security perspective, not a very good move. But,
Probably.
Ben, I've seen companies that have two shifts.
Hmm.
With a smaller downsized office, they cannot have desks for everyone.
Mhm.
So they distribute the days when
Okay.
these people are in the office and
Yeah.
when other people are in the office.
During your research, what was the most surprising thing that you found?
Most surprising. There are so many surprises, you know.
Share a couple.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that we have done is looking at fully remote onboarding in Ericsson in Sweden, where we have had the luxury of having access to 16,000 data points for the last 10 years. And we have seen that those people who have been hired during the pandemic, where onboarding was fully remote, in 5 years, 40% of them quit. But those who have been, the good news that those who have been onboarded after the pandemic in a hybrid setting, they exactly repeat the curve from pre-pandemic onboarding. So that was one interesting study with quite surprise, not very surprising findings, but they actually, the first time that we had the data of that scale to show that this is not working, fully remote onboarding.
Were you able to collect some reasons why people quit in the fully remote scenario?
Yes, so these we had access not only to the personnel data but also exit surveys. And one of the reasons that have never peaked before the pandemic or after the pandemic was context of the job. So I think this proves that when you're onboarded remotely and you have a certain expectation of what the job will be, the job context, you might have more surprises, and with very limited mentorship, you might struggle more with your job tasks, and this is maybe and for longer than expected. And without support, I think people, because of this, quit at higher rates.
Interesting. What else did you find that surprised you?
Let me think. I think one of the very funny things, we have built daily routines for days when people work from home. And one of the things is that a lot of people don't shower and don't have breakfast, just having some snacks or coffee at the table. And this was, I've spoken in different conferences, and occasionally I ask a question: how many people shower or don't shower during the days when they stay at home? And people still respond to this, confirming the finding that we have gotten during the pandemic.
Well, it's human in the end, I guess.
Yes, and what I usually say is that when a lot of people say that, for me it feels great, when I can work from home, it increases my well-being. And I fully recognize that. I also like working from home, but not 5 days a week all the time. Because, folks, showering is good for us.
Yeah, not only showering, like, I mean, at least for me, from my perspective, I get super lonely when I work, like the full week just sitting in the basement in front of my screen, and just like talking to people virtually, but not having a real connection and not going somewhere, not having to go somewhere. Everything is here in my bunker. It gets really lonely. And the people that I spoke to have felt very similar situations. That if you have like a full-time remote job, you're just missing out on that social connection, and it messes with you mentally, or at least in my case, it messed with us.
Yes, and I think there is some magic that happens in the room when we share the same place. We exchange energy in a different way. You get much more out of conversations and social interactions than digitally. Uh, and I've been trying to put a finger on this data that proves that there is some magic, but I was so far not successful. So far, but
So far.
I will continue.
All right. Let's move on to a similar field, which is the actual performance, or the way teams collaborate in different settings, like if there's a hybrid setting, a on-site setting, or a fully remote setting. During your research, have you seen differences in performance depending on the specific setting, on how you put teams?
Performance is such a great field, and we're in the wrong business to measure perhaps performance and productivity. So, although we have looked at individuals, for example, writing code, I wouldn't say that we can actually have good data insights into that type of performance for teams. But we did speak with people who, yes, report their self-perceived productivity, and people who work more remotely. They say that they feel more in control of their tasks, and more people report that they can finish their tasks on time. So, Ben, you have already said during this conversation that people work from home or on Mondays and Fridays to get things done. And this is in every study we have done. This is confirmed that people stay at home to stay focused. But we also see that two things. First of all, not everyone can get into this hyper productivity simply because, for example, younger people who don't know what they're doing, or who are new to their tasks, they cannot enter the flow. What Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described in his book, and with the 8 preconditions, you need to have also skills to do that.
Yeah, can you give us a quick heads up on his work, like what his definition of flow is? You just casually mention it, but I assume not everyone knows.
Yes, so this is a Hungarian-American psychologist, organizational psychologist, that has defined the flow as the momentum of deep focus, when you are absorbed by your tasks. You don't see how time flies. You don't hear noises around you, and all you can focus is on your tasks at hand. And this requires a lot of preconditions. And one of them is that you are not disturbed all the time. And another one is that you actually know what you're doing.
So is there a difference in like explorative work, where you kind of dive into a new field, and just operative work where you just have to execute tasks? Like one would be exploring a new industry, and another would be chopping wood.
Yeah, chopping wood doesn't require that much cognitive abilities.
Well,
I don't think
just
that
executing
is a
the
good example.
tasks that you know pretty well, you know.
Yeah. No, I think that exploration also can be with this focused attention, cognitive state. I don't think we should roll out any new tasks, But of course, the hyper productivity comes from being focused and knowing what you do. And writing code, for example, is one of those tasks that is a very good example of tasks requiring cognitive ability and attention.
But also the
and
knowledge
of course,
of the code base, right? Because you would get stuck if you're a junior developer, you just run into some legacy code like from 10 years ago, and you just get stuck at a certain point and actually need that social network catching you and like mentoring you through this new lines and helping you out, which you don't have when you're at home, I guess.
yes, exactly. And I think this is quite an interesting area because our research shows that from one side, it's really challenging to dig through these challenges yourself. On the other hand, we also saw the evidence, or at least testimonies, that people climb up their learning curves faster because they're not over relying on colleagues helping them out. But if your tasks are super complex, for example, Ericsson systems account millions of lines of code. They are very complex code and complex architectures, and the learning curve to be really senior developer takes 5 years. That's a very long learning curve.
Yeah.
And if it's not steep enough, you might be junior on the level of very low contribution for 6 months. Maybe young people who sign up for these jobs are not prepared for that.
Maybe move from the individual to more the team. How does this shift within the past 5 years affected like teamwork? Or in your talk, you've been also talking about like agile teams. So can you describe us a little bit what you found on the terms of agility and teamwork when it comes to remote, hybrid, or on-site work?
Right. And this is where I was heading with these productivity things. If you imagine a team with not, all alpha senior developers with great knowledge of the code base and what they're doing, self-going, self-managing teams, fully autonomous, then you are in real life, right? You have teams of different maturity, you have team members with different seniority. You also have a lot of dependencies within the team and outside of the team, which means that you need to coordinate a lot. And we have been in our research trying to draw social networks that every agile team maintains on a daily or weekly basis. And it can account from 25 to 50 contacts. That's how complex coordination networks are in companies. And since I'm in this business for a very long time of distributed and virtual work, I've been told all the time that tools will help us, tools will solve all the problems, and we still have technical problems when we connect through social, this video conferencing. It's the same, with the pull requests, for example, coming from outside of the team. They are never prioritized until the author of that pull request comes, knocks at the door and says, okay, let me explain what I did and what I need you to check. We still rely a lot on interpersonal communication. We still manage to solve a lot of problems and challenges through 5-minute talks in the corridor. When we move into digital work, a world, every social interaction becomes a scheduled line in our calendar. And we don't book 5-minute talks online. The minimum is 15, but most companies have these default slots of 1 hour or 30 minutes. And that's where our time goes into. So when teams move to working remotely, they either drop a lot of rituals. For example, dailies become weeklies, and stand-ups become sit-downs. We don't stand when we connect online. And if we encounter regularly problems with Ben, you're muted. Please unmute yourself. Oh, you froze. Oh, your Wi-Fi has a problem lagging. A lot of teams have moved into just slacking their daily problems.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it myself when I started work now 12 years ago. I had to schedule meetings, and the actual work would fill my calendar by itself. Now I have to schedule work, like focus time, and the meetings will fill the calendar by themselves.
Exactly.
It's just been the other way around.
So we have actually looked at calendar data as well in one of the companies, and we see a lot of people booking. Do not book this time slot, or booked for work, focused work. It's happening more often now.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. Like, it really helped me. When I look at the calendars, when I try to book a meeting with like senior leaders from my clients, and I can access their calendar, and it's just super cluttered. It starts at 7 and it ends at like 7 a.m. and it ends at like 6 p.m. and they just have back to back to back to back meetings. I'm like, okay, so if you take one action item out of a single meeting on that day, you're completely overbooked. There's like no time to work.
I have the worst story of having 3 parallel meetings. Someone, and this is not like a single story, to be honest. People triple book themselves, and they might have one meeting running on one screen, another meeting running on another screen, muted perhaps, or muted and with audio of the speakers, and one in their phone with a speaker in their ear. We have become so disengaged in meetings. So our presence is mere, not even turning on the video, just seeming to be there for everyone. And when we do that from home, sometimes we also have our kids around. We are preparing food for them in the morning, or meeting them from school, and still listening into some meetings in parallel. So where are we engaged? We're neither engaged in the meetings nor with our children.
Yeah. I saw that pattern as well. Were you able to collect some reasons why people do that? Because in the end, they're just listening to a podcast, or maybe 2 podcasts at the same time, right? They're not really, as you said, they're not really engaged in that meeting. Why do people do this?
I think it's a bad habit of multitasking. Multitasking is so addictive. If we are only in one meeting and we are not physically present, because physical presence puts a lot of pressure on us, we would not multitask openly in front of someone because it's disrespectful. But when we are sitting at home and our video cameras are off, it feels now like a waste of time, isn't it? So we are picking up our phones and browsing, doing something, or physically doing laundry.
Yeah. I mean, even if we're just talking, we both try to be present, you have like the whole screen with all the notifications coming up, different browser windows or anything that goes on the screen, which is not happening like if we would have met at the coffee machine.
Exactly. So what interactions do you enjoy more, and why?
Depends on what I'm trying to do. Like if I want to brainstorm or discuss a topic or just vent maybe, or to pick someone's brain, I'd much rather be at the coffee machine. But if I want to be like working onto a very deep subject, I want to be on screen actually. My preferred way of doing this would be both sitting in front of one computer, maybe having a big screen just mirroring the notebook, or in a remote setting where we could just share and work on a spreadsheet. Maybe it really depends on what I'm
Exactly.
trying to get out of that conversation.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these other things that consume our calendar time could be replaced effectively with an email. We are spending way too much time in meetings that do not require our engagement.
Yeah. I also thought about like putting people in the optional box. When you create a meeting, you can like invite people optionally. And then within the meeting invite, say, if you're invited optionally, you're just invited to receive the summary of this email of this conversation as an email. Do not attend.
Yes, correct. But you know what? This is a highly cultural thing. So in some cultures, if you don't invite people, you're being disrespectful. In other cultures, if you're invited and you do not attend, this is also disrespectful. So you need to be very careful about this.
Yeah, true. So it's interesting. It's disrespectful when you're not attending, but at the same time you're attending and then multitasking.
Exactly. It's a tough world we're living in.
Yeah, it's really tough. You can't win there.
Yes, and on top of that, there are a lot of we try to be efficient with meetings, and um, we learn how to do good agendas that fill the time, that are planned so that we can accomplish the task on time. And we are shooting ourselves in the foot with this many times when we need exploration, when we need to be more creative. Agendas are really bad. So there is a trend for agendaless meetings, at least sometimes, to book some time to just explore, just have time to talk about what's going on and drift away from perhaps predefined agenda points.
I always found this with brainstorming or innovation workshops where you want to like facilitate to sort of keep time, but then actually end up putting people into a process, and there is like no perfect innovation process or creativity process, right? So there would people into a certain agenda, and then hopefully something comes out that at the end. But then I more often see the magic happen where just somebody super experienced goes like, huh, this is a problem, what would you do? And that could be like at the coffee machine, that could be like walking to the parking lot and then having that conversation, or over a beer or whatever, right? But I think you would need that free space. But with the remote work, you schedule a meeting, you fill out a form, and it asks you for what is the agenda and the purpose of that meeting. And if I just put in, excuse my French, fuck around and find out, probably nobody would attend.
No, it's tricky. There is you need to strike a balance between the two. But in my view, we come with predefined ideas to brainstorming meetings nowadays to know for sure that we will walk out with a result. Because booking follow-up meetings have become a big problem. Then the horizon of booking a 2 hour slot with 10 people or with 5 people has moved so beyond the practical in practical terms that we try to squeeze everything in the time slot that we have booked. And then when we come with the predefined ideas to brainstorm about solution, then we lock ourselves already from full creativity.
What would you recommend companies that are still going through that transformation, like not really settled on a certain remote setting, hybrid setting, when to come to the office, fixed dates, core hours? What would you recommend those type of companies to find their spot?
Together with my friend and colleague from ex-Spotify, Martin Florian, we are actually writing a book about this for companies. And what we wrote in that book is that...
Like, actually, you write a book about this.
Yes.
Because this was not, we didn't script this question.
No, but I came to think about this because we have a very good metaphor with the DNA of a company. The answer to this question is very different, first of all. Second of all, there is no silver bullet. So I cannot say, do this, these companies should do 2 days and that 3 days. Maybe during the different time of the corporate development, you need 5 days a week in the office. And in certain other, so it's not like a transformation with the end destination. It's a journey. And you need to experiment a lot. And you need to understand what is the DNA of your company and what you not profit from, but what you can leverage in terms of social capital. Is it purely intellectual capital and organizational capital, like skills and intelligence of the people? And then sometimes I reflect on this like a journey time machine that brings us back to the 70s and 80s, when we really looked, when hiring people, we looked for excellence in terms of skills, coding skills. And we employed individuals that produced a lot individually. I think we have all agreed that teams are more superior. And I found very interesting African proverb saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah, I have the very similar saying. One of my former colleagues from another company that I worked in always ask, do you need help or do you want to be fast?
Right. And I think that teams are a superior work unit for software development. And as such, I think that trying to understand what teams need and maybe giving a lot more authority and autonomy to teams to decide what they need, because a CEO of a big company cannot know what this team or that team needs right now.
But I think that's especially difficult in larger organizations where you have multiple teams depending on each other, right? If you deliver a ERP system, let's say, you have like 20 different teams that are highly interconnected and dependent on each other. So giving, like, let's say one team wants to work remote, another team wants to work hybrid, another team wants to be on site, and have them synced in some way, I think is really, really hard.
Yes, absolutely. It's harder when it's not orchestrated at all. So what I have been doing in the past few months is, or actually a year and a half, is talking to teams and trying to moderate their discussions, what they need, and realizing how, because I don't think that people who want to work remotely, this especially senior that knows what to do, they are mean people who ignore everybody else. They just don't know what others need. And we are not really good in saying, Ben, I need you to come twice a week in the office, to have conversations and opportunities to learn from you. Especially when it's younger people talking to more senior people. This is not going to happen without moderation. So this was me coming and trying to lift all those needs of individual team members for the teamwork. And teams learn pretty quickly to reflect, okay, but if we come on these days, we need to choose the same dates as the other teams. So they are good to orchestrate themselves some of these occasions when office presence is needed.
Yeah. That is really interesting because, yes, like a junior developer wouldn't be, so I'm coming on Thursday. Boss, can you also come on Thursday so I could ask you for help? They would just go, when should I show up?
Yes, and as an external person, I can ask uncomfortable questions in a different way and hold conversations that maybe would not surface inside. And then half of the job after that goes even without my involvement.
Would you say that it's better to ask and do this bottom up? Or would you say, as an external person, it's way easier to give them a certain, tailor them a certain framework and have them explore from there to give them a little bit of a head start?
I think it meets in the middle. So we have seen companies where the bosses expected people to, have accountability and responsibility for managing these things themselves. But you also need to have a clear, so it cannot be ad hoc, so that some teams are fully remote, some teams fully on site, and everything in between. As you also mentioned 5 minutes ago, a company needs to show what their DNA is, what their culture is. And if the culture is more office-centered, it doesn't require a mandated office presence. Some companies that are very successful in bringing people back to the office have very flexible policies, but they have a strategy. They don't announce, oh, we want everybody to come back, but by the way, we have canceled 3 parking lots and we have downsized half of the office space. You need to have a culture and a strategy for office facilities and all the infrastructure that goes together and is communicated to the employees in a very reasonable way. And of course, we also, in our research, support these companies to try to understand what is the minimum or optimal office presence, if it's needed, and on what level. And then trying to also understand whether the more office presence gives any benefits. So this is also part of the research that we have been doing.
Interesting, yeah. I'd love to continue this conversation, but we're slowly running out of time. So if people want to join in, what would be a good way to connect to you and maybe learn something about your research?
I'm posting some of my research findings and also links to the presentations I give on LinkedIn. This is one area. And of course, the new book, once it's coming out, first, second quarter next year, it will be great to have readers and their feedback.
All right. So let's put all the links in the show notes. And now's a good time for you, dear listeners, to open up the show notes and get some more info on that. It was so great talking to you, Darja. Thank you for sharing and thank you for doing all of that research. It's really interesting and helping the industry. And see everyone on LinkedIn in the comment section.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode with Darja Smite. Her perspective on finding your company's unique DNA really resonates with what we believe here at StellarWork, that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to a great team. At StellarWork, we love helping tech leaders find the sweet spot for their own organization. It's not about adding more rigid rules and frameworks and even more meetings. It's about looking at your flow to uncover hidden potential and using agile patterns to help your teams learn faster and collaborate better. My goal is simply to help you clear the obstacles so you can focus on doing great work. If you're curious about how we can help to set you up for success, check out the link in the show notes. I'd love to chat. And if you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with a friend. It really helps the podcast grow. Thank you for listening and catch you in 2 weeks. Bye.